Bonjour and welcome to Behind the Mic Live, where I interview incredible coaches, public speakers, and authors who are making big rockstar moves in their business. Today, my guest is Tanya MFK. She is a business strategist, an author, and a speaker. So please welcome to Behind the Mic Live, Tanya MFK.
Hello.
Hey,
Yes,
how
so
are you?
excited to be here.
It's great to see you again. This is the second time. You were the second guest on the show when I started
Yeah.
this series months ago. Yes.
I
Welcome
can't
back.
stay away from your stage. It's too much fun. So here we are again.
Yes. So I asked you this question before, and a lot, it's been at least 5 or 6 months between. So who is Tanya?
Who is Tanya? Wow, that's a big one. So, who is Tanya MFK? Well, first and foremost, for anyone curious, Tanya MFK is Tanya Marie Figueres Preisinger. And if you're like, wait, what did she just say? That's why I go by Tanya MFK. So, making that easy for you. So, Tanya MFK, I am an ambitious, driven woman who is really just here actually trying to simplify what it means to
Mhm.
walk and live in that ambition. Because the one thing that I've learned through 22 years of doing this is
Mhm.
the hustle will knock you on your butt. Watching my language here, right? Hustle will knock you on your butt and it's not worth it. And so the goal here is to marry that ambition and passion
Mhm.
with simplicity and joy right now, because our life and our goals and our accomplishments don't live someday in the future, they're
Right.
today. And too often in
Right.
this space of growth and ambition, and the people that you're working with, right, coaches and speakers, we're in
Mhm.
this future focused motion, which is exciting, and but it can take our lives away if we don't learn to balance it with joy
Right.
today, with accomplishment today, with balance and calmness even today. And so I would say that's who I am in a nutshell. I'm one on a mission to bring that for myself and for anyone who hangs out with me.
Yeah, I think that's a great mission because finding the balance. We both worked in the music industry for a
Right.
long time, so I know you can relate to that. Where it's like you wake up in the morning, you go to sleep, and in between you're doing your music job, and it's like it's hard to find that balance. So I think that's something that a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs and authors and everybody out there can. How do you find that balance?
Yeah. Well, and I think an interesting part and one area that we really, the business that we run,
Hmm.
what we put ourselves in is that, again, with the people that you're working with and the audience here, the authors, the coaches, the thing is that all of you who are doing the work that you're doing, you showed up to write something powerful or to
Hmm.
sit there and hold space with someone and coach them powerfully. The last thing that most of us did was go, I want to write invoices and agreements and manage emails, but
Right.
that comes with the territory of business. And so
Right.
we can find ourselves in that spiral, similarly, as we were just saying about in music. You're
Yeah.
working with artists who are artists. They're
Yeah.
coming, they're looking for inspiration and wanting to write, and but the pace can really send a lot of that life joy crumbling. It can suck that muse out of you. And I know for a lot of us who came into the space of entrepreneurship, we didn't do
Hmm.
it for the sake of entrepreneurship. We did it for the sake of the thing that we're trying to do to help, what we're trying to
Right.
do to deliver our service or product, because that's the thing we're excited about. And so our goal is to figure out how to simplify that process of business, how to
Hmm.
create joy in it, how to make it in a way that it doesn't take away the joy from what you're actually trying to do, from that help you're trying to create, because
Yeah.
you can get lost in that. And my background, before I
Hmm.
got into music, was actually in clinical research. So the
Okay.
thing that I knew how to do was to cross every T, dot every I.
Right.
And so learning to kind of systematize things and take that concept and that idea of a
Hmm.
lot of information and a lot of tasks and simplify it into your processes is
Right.
really where I shine, and kind of helping that become a reality today. Because again, you hear me talk a lot about this someday myth, that someday I'll work hard now, I'll do it all now, and someday, I'll finally relax, it'll finally be enough, it'll finally
Right.
be okay. And in my story, in my life, I I missed out a lot on opportunities in life that I could have had, including with loved ones, for that mentality. And that was a huge wake up call to say, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to balance this with today joy as well as ambition for the future. Right? It's not either or, but it is figuring out how to do it in a practical way. Because again, most of us here, we're here on LinkedIn, we might be on Instagram or anywhere else. We've scrolled and we've seen those inspirational quotes, those things for a moment fire you up and you go, yeah, I should be here now. I should live my best life. But then once that goes away and that's fleeting, how do you do that in a practical manner? How do you do that at 6 a.m. when you're tired? How do you do that when you have 500 things to do at home or the kids are running around, right? It's wonderful to be inspired. It's a great thing, but it's just the beginning of what's going to bring you to action. And that's kind of where my work and my background really comes together and culminates in going, hey, let's hold on to that inspiration, but then let's get out of the clouds and get into the mud and kind of go to the nitty gritty of how we make this real in our lives and for our businesses.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about like, well, from the music side, when they go on stage, they flip a switch. I say that with the clients, when they go on stage, flip a switch. But I think what's also really important, a lot of people may forget, is when you come off stage or we would say non-show days or non-show time, you have to flip that switch back. And I think that's where we can get that. Because I think especially as entrepreneurs, when we're starting a business or doing anything, even musicians that just want it so bad, they put, I'll work 80 hours a week. And like you said, you can burn out and not have the life that you really deserve in the moment that you're going through it, rather than, okay, I'll bust my ass for 10 years and then I'll rest.
Then I'll do it, right? And the analogy I love in this is I tend, if any of you have seen me before, I love to use analogy of things I know very little about. So my analogies and metaphors, but the one that I love to use is the Formula One racer, right? Again, something I know nothing about, but the one thing I do know is that we're dealing with the fastest cars in the world, right? We're dealing with someone who's going to be number one. And even in a race of speed, there's pit stops. They slow down. There's a need for a break. There's a need to idle. There's a need to go and take that pit stop and get more fluids and flip the tires and all of those things. And yet too often in this space, we just stay full throttle and wonder why we run out of gas. Hello, even the Formula One needs a break.
I love that. It's a great visual. I see Lewis Hamilton right there. I see exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, that's so true. I think, and it takes having a coach and having someone who can look at it from a different perspective to go, okay, you're doing great, but let's take that pit stop now. Let's
and I think intellectually, most of us who have been running businesses and we've been doing the things that we're doing, we know that, but it's really, really tough to put it into practice. It's really tough to put it into an action plan, because we've heard it, we've seen it. We're like, I know I'm supposed to take a break, but it's so hard to justify it, right? Like, we know we should slow down. We've heard the doctor say, we've heard the inspiration, like self-care, but it's the practice of it, the implementation of it into the nitty gritty of life. That's where it becomes complicated. And I think that is where we're missing a lot of direction in this space, because we have a lot of people starting at the beginning. We're starting at inspiration, but we're not going to the practicality of going, okay, but the reality of my life and the reality of my goal I'm trying to accomplish, how do I make that real in my life? How do I actually create space? How do I be here now? Right? How do I do it? Is the next step.
Yes. And speaking of being inspired, on one of our many calls that we have, I was talking to you about the show, and you gave me some really great advice, and you are the inspiration for these questions. And the first one is, how did you find your voice? First off, thank you. That's a great question. I love that.
How do you find your voice? Well, here we are, right behind the mic, right? And I know that you support people in finding their rock star selves, right? And really stepping into like that switch. right? Because we don't have to be rock stars 24/7. But when we can show up in the full embodiment of who we are in that moment, that is how we're going to powerfully serve on social media, how we're going to powerfully serve our clients when we understand how to step into it and how to find our voice. And so
Right.
how did I find voice? I mean, I've been doing business development for 22 plus years now. And so I
Wow.
think it's been a metamorphosis of change and growth and all of those things. But I would say the impetus, as a lot of people who are familiar with my story, is, coming from a background of poverty, coming from a place of just trying to get to that someday. When
Mhm.
I ended up working really hard and doing all that ambition stuff. And because of that, I put my life on hold, and I was married, and
Wow.
I was telling my husband, like, hey, we gotta work. We gotta do something. We'll enjoy life later on. No, we can't take a walk. We got chores at home to do. We got stuff we gotta get ahead so we can get that house, get that car, do those things. And when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma on my birthday, and was given a 4 to 6 month prognosis, that was a huge wake up
Oh,
call to
wow.
go, what do I want to do with this life? What have I been doing? What have I been missing out on
Oh,
by being
wow.
so future focused? And so I think that pushes you, right? And I always tell people,
Yeah.
don't wait for tragedy to wake you up. Okay. Like, there's other
Yeah.
ways. If you can make powerful choices in tragedy, imagine what you can do in times of peace and joy, right? So
Wow.
you have an opportunity to make powerful choices without that now. And I think through that, it was that wake up call of self-examination to look at how I wanted my life to be. And the more that, people checked in on me, how I was doing, I think that was the first step, the development of that voice to go, you know what, I have
Mm.
some big feelings about this, and a big
Yeah.
feelings about how I've lived my life and how I want to do it moving forward. And I remember being in kind of a daze for a good, year plus after
Oh,
that.
wow. Wow.
And I came from healthcare, so I took a sabbatical, and I remember a very close colleague of mine who was a doctor kind of witnessing my wanderings. And at the time I was like, I don't
Right.
know what I want to do. And I started, I got to talk with my music friends, and I started making bags. I was selling at festivals and I was just trying different things,
Right. Right. Right.
finding yourself. And so
Right.
as I went through that, one of my colleagues is like, okay, you've had your kind of
Mhm.
search.
Right.
When are you going to come back to, like, the normal world, come back to the office, come back where you got a job, it's good money, all those things. And it was that question I'm so grateful for. It was a little condescending, but I was really grateful for, because it pushed me to look at it and
Mm.
go, you know what? Never. Never is when I'm going to go back to that. And I am done
Oh,
trading my
wow.
time for dollars. And so that, I think, was that second level of finding my voice and where I stand. And it was just that continual reflection to go, you know what, this is how I feel. This is how I am. And also maybe being questioned, right? So any of you are feeling the
Yeah.
pressure, maybe you're stepping into entrepreneurship for the first time. You're like,
Mhm.
what are you doing? The more that you feel those questions, and I think the more it makes you look at it, the more confident you feel and going, you know what? This is why I'm doing it. And so take them with a grain of salt, but celebrate them as well, because I think they force us to look at ourselves. And the more that we know ourselves, the more confident that we are in showing up in our voice.
Yeah. And we talked about this question as well. I believe everybody has rock star qualities in them. My messaging is channel your inner rock star, which means that the rock star's always been inside us. It just takes the right tools. It takes sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's having the right coach to bring it out. So what would you say, Tanya MFK, is your number one rock star quality?
Oh, my rock star quality. Well, in general, it's interesting you say this. Again, having come from music,
Hmm.
working with artists and these incredible people who can sing and play instruments and put music and, compose music and melodies and all of these things. I would remember working with these incredible people and just kind of, almost being envious, right? Like, wow, look at this
Okay. Yep.
incredible thing that they're capable of doing. And as you know, working with artists can be difficult as well, because sometimes
Mm,
they're in their own artistic bubble, and you're like, if
right.
you could snap out of it, look at all this
Right.
incredible stuff you could do, right? Like, show up on time, go to those events, do those things. You could really do something incredible. And I remember thinking, man, if I had a quality like that, coupled
Mm-hmm.
with, my organization and my follow through and all of those things, like imagine what I could create if only I had some quality like that. And it took a while to recognize that everything I did behind the scenes was my rock star quality. My
Wow.
ability to naturally organize and follow
Yes.
through and put things together, to be able to see lots of different pieces and go, okay, here's the goal, right? Again, back even with
Mm-hmm.
artists and anyone else, here's the goal, right? You want to be on a big tour, or you want to, get that album out. How do we take all those pieces and put that into a game plan, an actual strategy? It
Mm.
feels all out here, but when I look at it, I mean,
Right.
it just goes right into a plan for me. It's just the way I function, and I would say that is my rock star quality, is that I can make a plan and a strategy out of anything. I mean, if you've ever seen me put on an event, I mean, even a dinner event at
Mm-hmm.
my house, like there
Mm-hmm.
is a list
Yeah.
and a plan and
Yes.
the whole
Yes.
thing. I mean, and for some people that gives them the heebie-jeebies. They're like, oh, that's
Yes.
so overwhelming. But that's my natural MO,
Yes.
right? It's just second nature to put it together or to label everything in my pantry. And so that's definitely my rock star quality.
I can relate to that 100%. Absolutely. I find it okay. Like even going to the grocery store with
Yeah.
Sandy, I have a list. If I don't have a list when I go into a grocery store, I don't want to walk in there and try to think about what I have to pick up. I
No,
want to go,
no,
and I know
no.
what everything is in each aisle, and it, to me, it brings less stress because
Yes.
I can enjoy the shopping experience and I can just truck along and go, oh yeah. And then, but if I go in, for me, if I try, and that same thing with business too, if I try to even go to the grocery store without a list, it's going to be so
Yeah. Try to
stressful.
figure it out on the fly.
Which
Oh, that's where I'm
which aisle? What do
hyperventilating.
I need? I'm like, and then I don't enjoy the experience. Well, it's the same thing with,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's overwhelming because you're trying to figure it out in the moment, and you
yeah,
can't be in the moment, for anyone who can relate as well. I always joke, like, I have no problem going with the flow as long as
right.
you tell me what time the flow starts. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Plan spontaneity. That's how we used to call it on the
Yes.
road. Is like, yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I
I
get
love
the
it.
structure, and I truly believe that there's so much freedom in structure, as a matter of
Yes,
fact, because when you have those spaces, you can go as kind of wild as you want within them,
yes,
but the structure provides that guidance and space moving you towards what you want.
yes,
Right. And so as long as you go, well, yeah, this is the path and this is where I want, and I can do all these things within that, but I still know where I'm headed. Otherwise, we can lose our way. Right. And just like the grocery
yes,
store, if we
yes,
know, like, I'm making this meal, maybe I have some flow, I don't know exactly what cheese I'm going to buy. I can go
right.
wild within the cheese aisle, but I know I'm headed to the cheese aisle.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I've
Yes,
ended up somewhere else going, I don't know. I bought everything except for what I
except
needed.
the cheese.
Now I got to go back again. Now I
Right.
don't know what I'm making tonight. Like, oh, nightmare, nightmare. So, yeah.
It's the same thing with business too. I think you need to have a plan, and like you said, you have to have like the bookmarks of it, at least
Yeah.
to start and to stop. I think quarters are great for that. I think that's how business operates. Is what are we going to accomplish in this quarter? And then we can go wild within that quarter. But then I just, yeah, I can't walk out the door without having a written
No, not at all.
plan.
And what you
And
said is absolutely true, because I know for a lot of people, and we work with entrepreneurs, and so
hmm
within that space, it can feel very suffocating when we start talking about structure and strategy, and they're like,
right,
"Oh, that's a lot." But when we're talking structure and strategy, we're making space for downtime. We're making space to
yes,
enjoy that book. We're making space for
yes,
family, because that's the structure that goes out the window when you're just focusing on the things that need to get done. And so it's about creating that freedom within that, and understanding, even within business, there are core foundations in business, and they're actually rather simple in a lot of ways. They're really just
hmm
the same thing that we look at a relationship and how we build relationships.
hmm
Within that structure, there is a ton of different ways there you could do it. There is no have to, right? Well, clients will say, well, if I have to be on, I guess X now, it used to be Twitter. If I have to be on Twitter, I'll be on Twitter. Like, there is no have to. There's
right,
absolutely no have to. There's so much freedom in the way
right.
that you can show up in your business. Gary V, however many years ago, there wasn't
hmm
someone who said, hey, show up, drop some F bombs, and you're going to have a
Yep,
great business.
yep.
He figured out his own freedom. But if you watch the rest of the structure of the business, it still follows showing up on social
Yep.
media,
Yep.
having an email list, having
Yep.
all those pieces that are still there within business. But within that, he had his freedom. He found his own path. And so there is, I dare you all to challenge me, but there is freedom within the structure.
And let's talk about your new book, Goals to Game Plan, the anti-burnout toolkit to turn
Yes.
entrepreneur ambition into action. I love the Zen quote that you have in there: obstacles do not block the path, they are the path. Boy, that's a great quote.
Yes.
So I want to know, what tips do you have for entrepreneurs to overcome obstacles in their business?
Well, it's going to be having that game plan, right? It's really about that, because there is no unscathed or unscarred in business, right? I think it's in Brene Brown's Daring Greatly or something, one of her things. She talks about speaking to a group of people going, well, listen, so I need to know, if we work together, that when you fail, you're able to do X, Y, and Z. And they were like, yeah, if we were to fail. She's like, no, not if, when. There will be that moment. There will be an obstacle. There will be a challenge. There will be something to overcome. But if we're committed, not just interested in making this happen, if we're committed, then that's the path. We can go through that. We can look at it head on. But a lot of it is about having this game plan, because again, after 22 years of doing this, I have seen so many brilliant type A overachievers. That's who we tend to attract, because I'm one myself, right? Drowning in these ambitions, right? Just trying to tick off that endless to-do list.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when I started that story of just how I lost my husband, that was a huge part of the time I missed out on, was that when we got home, it was like, no, we can't enjoy life. I got to tick off that list. I got to get all this stuff done. Wow. And do that in business, and we're just ticking off the list, and we're spinning in circles, instead of having like a true game plan and understanding what that means. Not just having a goal, but having the action plan to create that. And I think that is where we have the misstep, or we get the overwhelm, is when we're not looking at the bigger picture. And so we end up sacrificing the very life we're trying to improve by being an entrepreneur, by creating our business, when we don't have these things in order. And so yeah, that was a big reason why we created it, and why it was so necessary, because again, everyone's got inspiration, but we go, okay, what do I do with that? What are the next steps to create something, tangible that helps me make this happen?
Yeah, I've always associated, well, with the music side, I've always associated, like, you have 3 different scenarios. You have a band that is incredible, but they play in the garage to their girlfriends or boyfriends, and no one knows them, right? But they've got great songs. You got a band that goes out and plays one show a month. It's going to take them how many years to get 100 shows under their belt? Or you get a band that spends 5 years in the garage creating it, going out, playing shows, and then when they figure out what their sound is, they go on tour for a year, and they play every market they can get into. And I equate that to being on social media. Like, think of it, every time you go on social media, you're putting it's like presenting a show in front of an audience all over the world. So the more shows you do on social media, the more comfortable you get, the more shows under your belt, right? Like we talk about, you've been doing this for 22 years. If you just did one show a month, it would take so long to get. So my question is, what can entrepreneurs do? Because video is so powerful. LinkedIn starting on video. We know TikTok, we know Instagram, everything. What can entrepreneurs do to really get their message out on video?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, so one thing I want to throw in there before, let's remember this question in case I go off too much. Okay. But what's interesting in that scenario that you talked about with the artist is, because back when I was working in music, that was one of the things that I used to discuss with artists as well, was what is the success that you're seeking?
Yes.
Because that is actually the first fundamental thing. So I had people go, well, I just want to play. And I go, well, look, buddy, if you just want to play, we can book you in coffee shop from here to the next 5 years. And they go, right. Oh, well, no. I kind of was, okay. So the clarity of where you want to go is actually what's going to determine that path, first and foremost. Yes. And so if you tell me, oh, you want a record deal, that's a different path, because now we're, especially back then.
Yeah.
to understand the industry. You need to understand the record label and what they're looking at. And you're going to understand how you need to kind of morph and twist and turn to their desires, coupled with holding your integrity for that in order for that to happen. Or they may say, I want a tour. I want a big tour. Okay, that's a different thing, right? That's a different thing we need to create. There are tours that don't necessarily have to be on record labels, but there's a different place you need to appeal to, right? How are your ticket sales? What kind of followers do you have? So first and foremost, understanding that is what determines the path. And so similar to your question, right, with video is what is it that you're trying to accomplish? So you don't all have to do video. It is ideal. And if you have the personality and energy that feels comfortable, or you want to, there absolutely is a path and there is a benefit to it. I will just say for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, do I have to? I told you earlier, there's no have to. So there are ways to do it without it. But for the rest of you are going, okay, I want to, but I have all these worries and caveats, that's where we need to look at ourselves. Where are we at? What can we show up with, right? And what are we actually wanting to create with these videos? Is it about views? Is it about information? Famously, Amy Porterfield, who's a kind of in the entrepreneurial space, she was not comfortable on camera in the beginning and for the longest time, which is our own, we all have our own stuff that we're dealing with and figuring out. So what she did is she would show up and she'd have like a very quick, like, hey, everybody, okay. And then she'd get the slides on. And the slides were the rest of the presentation. But the more and more that she did that, the more and more she was comfortable chatting, the more she was comfortable in kind of showing up. And it helped her find her voice. And now she's the face, she's the first face you see on her website. She's doing all that stuff. But it's a combination of things, right? Like, I mean, we could go through some, just video tips. So I think that you talk to G about that. He's going to help you find your rock star space on what to do and getting on video. But in general, if you're just struggling with whether or not it's the right thing to do, if you want to do it, there is a way. And so the next thing is to go, well, what's my goal in this? What's my purpose? What am I trying to get out of that? Because there's different measurements, right? If it's engagement, we're going to have a different style. If it's just views, or different. If you're trying to move people into working with you and create a lead from that video, that's a different angle. And so it's really about understanding that. And that's one of the things we talk about in the book is that one of the first things that you need to do, the first chapter is actually called Know Thyself. And you really need to assess where you are in life and what you want, right? That's the first step. It's not the goal. A lot of times you go, well, I know how to set goals. This is not a goal setting book. This is a goal action book. And the first part is really taking some evaluation about where you are and what you want, because nothing else will fall into place without that clarity. And so this gives you, again, the book is full of it's a toolkit, as you mentioned. It's the anti-burnout toolkit because again, a lot of people are going to go, here's a goal and put it in your calendar and go, and go. No. We want balance. We want to understand something more powerful here. And that first step is going, what do I really want? And what do I have? And where am I realistically? You may want it and be ready. And realistically, you just don't have the time to be consistent with video. And that's something else to discuss and look at and go, well, how do I, now the challenge and obstacle is, how do I create that time? Or how do I adjust my life to create that time? And so before we get on to just the wild goal, we got to go, how can I actually make this a reality? So that's what I would say about that.
Yes. And I love what you said about artists that, just playing in a coffee shop, because I used to run into that too. Like, well, what do you want to do? I just want to play shows. Well, with who and where and when, and it's the same thing like with coaching. Well, I just want to be a coach. Well, okay, let's streamline it. So I want to talk about, your company and your system and how can people work with you, and take us through, like, I know you've got a couple different options how people can work with you.
Oh yeah. Well, there's definitely plenty of ways to work with us. We actually have, so I'm Tanya MFK, right? And I do coaching and a lot of one-to-one work in a lot of this area for both business and personal development as you're working through that mindset and other spaces in your life. But the business that we have is called Modern Business Mastery. And Modern Business Mastery is really on the concept that self-mastery is what creates business mastery. And the modern part is that there is a lot of outdated stuff out there, right? There's a lot of like the have tos. You have to be on this. You have to do that. You absolutely do not. We have incredibly successful clients that aren't on social media at all. We have incredible
Right.
clients who brick and mortar. We have clients who do nothing but social media. Of course, we always bring them into our email list, but that's another thing. And so with that modern vibe, we actually have a free community. So if you're looking for support from coaches, resources, trainings, we have all of that completely free. You're not going to be chased down by anybody. And it's our really idea there is to democratize the business coaching space, because unfortunately it is incredibly noisy. There's a lot of weekend certificate type of people who have learned marketing rather than actual strategizing. And so they're really great at marketing. They're really great at selling you their high ticket coaching, because that's what the marketers are teaching is everyone needs the high ticket coaching. And so we've decided to go the opposite route, and we've decided to knock out that old ways and come in with making it accessible for everyone. Because again, for myself, coming from poverty, that wasn't accessible to me. Those price points weren't something that I was capable of doing way back then. And so that Google searching your way through business, while you can be grateful for it, that it's there, it can take a really long time. And sometimes just a couple of insights from someone who's been there for a long time can skyrocket your path. And so one way is to just come into the free community that we have. It's a private community. It's not on social media, so you're not going to get any of that distraction. And so that's our Modern Business Mastery community. Another thing that we do is we have a no pitch, no sale offer to have a strategy building session. And in that session, we will map out your next 3 steps of your business strategy within 20 minutes. And so this is a no BS kind of thing. You're going to get, it's not a discovery call or let's see if we're a fit call. We get to solutions on that call. And for any of my clients or people who've worked with us who are watching this today, like comment below, because you know how we do. Let people know that that's how we work. And then, of course, we have the book, the Goals to Game Plan book. And so that book that we've written, like you said, is a toolkit. It has 15 resources in it of actionable worksheets to walk you through the steps of going from this is the goal and this is how I'm going to do it. And so, as we said, just kind of a quick, do I have time to kind of chat about the 12 steps real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So as we started there, is that it's the know thyself, right? Assessing where you currently are in life. And you'll hear me talk about reality a lot, because there is, again, you hear me say this too, a lot of inspiration in this space, but we all have real lives that are busy and have different obligations and different things that go on. And so this, hustle culture, like we're kicking that out the window. We don't like using that word. We don't play with any of that, because it's about assessing where the reality of your life, knowing yourself. And then the next step is to get it all out. What are all the things that are in your mental space right now? And I mean everything. So we walk you through a process that goes anywhere from what will be my marketing plan to I've always wondered what squirrels eat. Like whatever's in there, we want to get it out and figure out what's cluttering it. Because I also have a background in applied neuroscience. And one of the things that you learn in there is that this thing is not a file cabinet, right? And so it's the same reason why, when we have to write lists to go to the grocery store, it doesn't matter how much you look in your cabinet and go, this is what I need to know. When you get there, you're going to forget something, right? Because it's not a file cabinet. And so we need to really clear it out so we can start using it for what it's meant to do, which is to actually keep us safe, which is the first thing, and then to help us perform those tasks. So we have a process to help you get all that stuff out and make sense of it and start creating a game plan for what you're dealing with now. And then from there, we've ditched the SMART framework of goal creation with something that we call the what framework, which is a fun way. And that walks you through a much more detailed process of taking those specific goals and putting them into very detailed steps that make sense. But then from there, again, we got a goal. But am I really motivated for that? So after that, step 4 is to uncover your deepest motivation. What is this really about? And we've all heard kind of the Simon Sinek, find your why. Again, a beautiful thing to say, but how do I do it? And that's something that we walk you through in here. And just as an example, one of the things we like to kind of explain is, I know a lot of us gals might have the, I want to get in shape, want to fit into those old jeans, especially some of us moms want to get to that pre-baby jean thing or whatever. And the thing, we go to, well, why? Well, I want to feel better about myself. Well, why is that important to you? Well, if I look better, I do that. Well, why is that important? And when we start to dig
Right.
7 layers deep,
7
you
layers,
might get
yes.
to, I want to be able to play with my kids, and I want to be around when my grandkids are around because I'm healthy enough. And all of a sudden, when you look at having to go to the gym or do that workout and you go, I want to go to the gym to fit into my jeans versus I want to go to the gym so I'm around for my grandkids, that motivation's a heck of a lot deeper. And that, when push comes to shove, because you will find yourself in tough times, you will find yourself in challenges, you will find yourself going, is this all worth it? That's what's going to push you through. The genes won't, but that will. And so uncovering the deepest motivation for that goal is the next step. And then after that, we got to look at our environment. How do we create an environment around us to win? And that can be anything from our physical environment to people around us to all different areas that we're in. So we walk you through in a process to do that, and then how to integrate accountability. So not everyone's going to have a coach. Not everyone's going to have people around. So how do you create accountability for yourself? How do you create milestones and rewards to keep that motivation going? How do you track it and compound it that you're seeing the tiny steps go into bigger steps? So a lot of time we're trying to make those huge leaps. And then what I love, and you mentioned this earlier, something about what would I tell them if they're trying to figure this out and they're finding those hard times, is what we call, for the sake of we're here on LinkedIn, what we call an oh crap plan, right?
Okay.
And we have you create an oh crap plan for a couple of reasons. Going back to neuroscience, when we look at the way our brains are set, they're set in a way for habit, right? So the way that we've always reacted to something is how we're going to react. So as a I live in Europe now, but as a native Californian, traffic is a thing, right? So you find yourself in traffic, right? Getting real upset in traffic and going, hey, what a jerk, and all of those things. Well, if you tell yourself, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to get so frustrated. When that moment comes, the only thing you've known how to do is to yell jerk. So you actually don't have a backup plan for doing anything different. So your knee-jerk reaction will be for what you've always done. Similarly to our reactions when we get knocked off track, when we don't land that client or somebody says no to that speaking gig, that can knock us off track. And so what we do is a bit of work and visualization that's backed by neuroscience ahead of time to go, what is my oh crap plan? What is my plan for if it doesn't work out? And we practice that mindset ahead of time. So if and when we find ourselves in that moment, we've already rehearsed what to do. And our brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. This is why you can watch a movie and cry. Because even though they're actors on a screen, our body is reacting with a true, real physical reaction from the emotion and experience. If we can do that same thing in practicing for our business and practicing for our reactions, we can harness that resilience to get right back on track when things aren't going our way. So I took a little detour on that one because I love that one so much. But the having the backup plan, and then after we've done all that, that's when we actually start to figure out what's our time, how we're going to have the time to do this. How do we get an edge? There are some things that we can do to hype up our performance, hype up our focus, all of those things, again, using neuroscience and back techniques that we know. And all of this is in the worksheets. Then, and only then, are we actually going to plan it out. And I think that is the key, is that too often we look at the goal and we go, okay, Tuesday. And we haven't looked at any of the other pieces. We haven't looked at any of the other reality of that. And then we go, oh, I wonder why it didn't follow through. So noticing we're getting a little change on the sunshine.
I see what you're talking about. I see the sun. We'll be wrapping up here soon. I noticed too that if we just set goals and then check it off a checklist, we can get into autopilot.
Yes.
Okay, I've got to put out this many a post a day. So I go and write 10 posts at one time and schedule them. And there's nothing wrong with that. I schedule as well. I'm not against scheduling. But what I'm saying is if you sit down at the beginning of the month and you schedule your posts for the whole month, in my opinion, it's not as relevant or as current as doing some posts. I mean, maybe even once a week or something schedule, but kind of stay in the time. Like, it's like, okay, I just watched, we got Kamala as our hopefully president by the time this airs, someone watches it later on, she's our president. But what I'm saying is, and we're going to go late today, and it doesn't matter. People can turn it off or watch or whatever. The way that she handles herself public speaking, the way that I know you see this as well from the neuroscience level. There are ways that, they're connecting with people. What I'm trying to say is they didn't just walk out on stage and start talking. This has taken years and years, and they've got one of the best teams. They've got Obama's team behind them, showing them the strategy. And it's more than just reading words. It's emotion.
Yeah.
And
I think the point is it's more than going through the motions and a means to an end, right? I think we have this idea, well, I need to post, so here I met my quota of posts, right?
Yeah.
And the quota of posts isn't actually where the gold is. It's the consistency of you showing up, and it's the consistency of the value of you showing up. And if you're consistent but not valuable, then it doesn't matter how often you're posting, right? It doesn't matter if you have the month of posting showing up. Now, I am all for systems, and that's a big thing I am about systemization, and especially for solopreneurs, it very much may need to be a month in advance. Now, those, of course, if you're dealing with current events and that's part of your business, then you need a different system that allows you to be current in those current system. I mean, in the current events, while also having a system to allow space for your life that week as well. Because if you're constantly on, that's going to burn you out as well, which is also going to beat up your consistency. But the main thing there too is, again, even if you're doing it a month in advance, what is the point and purpose that those posts are actually moving towards? And if you don't have that, again, if you're just going through the motions, just posting because someone said you need to post 10 times or 3 times a week on LinkedIn, as many know, it's not, and you're wondering why it's not working. It's because the magic isn't in just the 3 posts. It's in the purpose and the content, essentially the value that you're actually bringing to somebody's day. And so even if your post goes viral, like a lot of people have this, I want to go viral. And then what, right? So we had worked with somebody once who was doing incredible work. They're an incredible writer. And one of their articles went viral. They ended up having over 1 million views in a single day, which just was mind-blowing. It was wonderful, all of those things. However, that person didn't have any clarity in the purpose of their business and what people were coming for. So they came for this great article, they read it, and then they were gone. There was no value in that viral post because those people weren't back. But if you had a way to say, hey, if you liked this, come sign up for our newsletter.
Right.
Move to a purpose of where are you actually wanting them to go. Right. What do you want them to do after they've read this? We have a lot of clients too. They'll go, if I can just get on a podcast or I can just get on the news or something, everyone will come. It's PR. And then what? And then they come to your website for one day and they go, well, that was neat. And then they're gone, out of sight, out of mind. You need a bigger plan. Than just that goal, right? And I think it goes right along even with the book, is that you need a bigger plan than just the goal itself. And when we understand the bigger view, the bigger purpose, the goal kind of starts to plan itself. It starts to go, oh, I see how this all connects together to my bigger view. And that's what matters the most.
Yes. Yeah. This, man, we could talk for hours.
I know.
But as I wrap up, I do want to know, who is your favorite rock star?
My favorite rock star, my goodness. I know I had somebody else last time, but you know what? I think I'm going to go very typical right here. But oh gosh, there was a rock star. I'm probably going to regret it, but I don't know. I'm going to say Gaga right now. And I'm actually not a huge Gaga fan. I mean, she's great. But when I watched the 5-2 movie, that consistency, that follow through, that's the thing, right? We think that all these people have this just natural ability, but it takes all that effort and work behind the scenes to show up the way that you do. I think the same thing when I watched the Beyonce one. Again, people that I think are incredibly talented. They're not necessarily on my particular playlist all the time, but that commitment, I think that is the same thing that we're unfortunate in this space where, again, really great marketers are almost unfortunately good at their job, that we've purported this 4-hour work week idea, thinking that we can show up and create something powerful with minimal effort.
Right.
And the minimal effort is the payoff after all the effort.
Yes.
And so if you're ready for that, it is a long game. It is an effortful game, but it doesn't have to take your life away. And so before we sign off too, I would love to offer anyone who's stuck around this long, you can get a free copy of our book. And so I can share that probably under this post here. We'll share a link. Check out that book, get the 15 resources, and start making something happen for your commitment today.
Yes. Well, this is perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Be sure to connect with Tanya MFK here on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. Also, check out her website, modernbusinessmastery.com.
And TanyaMFK.com. We got 2 of them.
And this was incredible. Wow, I'm very, very excited. And thank you again for all the insights that we have on our calls together. It's just really helpful.
And if I'm back again, I swear I'll try to be shorter, but it's real tough.
Don't worry about it.
Easy to talk to.
This is great. This is perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
All right. Have a great day. We'll see you. Until next time, everyone. Ciao. Cheers.